Today you will be learning about the relationship between fractions and decimals. The learning objective is for you to be able to change any fraction into a decimal. We have discussed before that fractions are parts of a whole. For example, on the number line you see that 1 is separated into 4 parts. Decimals are no different. When you create a decimal, you're describing one part of a whole, but just writing it in a different way. You see that 1/4 can also be written as 0.25. 1/2 is also written as 0.5. And 3/4 is also written as 0.75. There's only one way to make any fraction into a decimal, and that is division. There's something important to remember when it comes to dividing this way into a decimal, or any decimal for that matter. You were used to having a remainder, and that stopped the division problem. However, with decimals, when we're dividing this way, there is no remainder, because decimals are your remainder. They become your remainder. So let's start off with a practice problem. Let's start off with 1/2. Let's turn this into a decimal. Let's make our division problem. All right, 2 cannot go into 1. Well, that's a problem, because we need to make this into a decimal. How are we supposed to do that? We add a place value to this 1. How do we add a place value, say? We put a decimal to the right of this 1, because 1 is a whole number, and we add a 0. Now that looks like something we can divide. So let's just think of this number as 10. So 2 goes into 10 how many times? 5, because 2 times 5 is 10. There it is. So 10 minus 10 is 0. Now we have a 0 down here. We're done with our division problem. But Mr. Sinclair, I thought this was supposed to make into a decimal. Where's our decimal at? Well, here's the thing. Our decimal will be created. We're going to use our created decimal, move it up this way, and put a dot right there. And then we add a 0. And there is our new decimal, 0.5. So to recap, 1/2 is equal to 0.5. Let's practice a different problem. Let's do 1/8, or 1/8. We put our 8 on the outside of the division problem, and put the 1 on the inside, because the denominator goes here, and the numerator goes on the inside. Now, 8 cannot go into 1, so what we're going to have to do is add a decimal to add place value, because 1 is a whole number, and we'll add a 0. Now, 8 goes into 10 how many times? 1 time. Okay, so 8 times 1 is 8. So 10 minus 8 would be 2. Here's our issue. This is not 0. We have to keep going until we hit 0. So let's add another 0 right over here and drop it down to right here. So then 8 goes into 20 how many times? 2. Because 8 times 2 is 16. We have to extend this. So 20 minus 16 is 4. Okay, we don't have a 0 yet, so we have to keep going. So we have to add another 0 and drop that down way down here. 8 goes into 40 how many times? 5. And now 8 times 5 is 40, which then minuses to equal 0. We're done. We are finally at 0 here. So now let's make our decimal. We take our created point, move it up above the division symbol, right there. We add our 0. So now we have our new decimal problem, decimal point, 0.125. So to recap, 1/8 is equal to 0.125. Let's try and do another practice problem. Let's try 1/3. So we make our division problem. 3 goes on the outside because it's the denominator, and 1 would go on the inside, which is our numerator. So 3 goes into 1. Well, we can't put 3 into 1, so we'll have to make our new place value. So we put the decimal to the right of this 1, and then add the 0 to add our place value. Okay, so 3 goes into 10 how many times? 3. 3 times 3 is 9. So then, treating this as 10, 10 minus 9 is 1. Well, this isn't a 0, so we have to keep going. So we add another 0 and put it down there. Okay? So the 3 goes into 10 down here 3 times again. So 3 times 3 equals 9. And then 10 minus 9 is 1. I've seen this before. It happened up here, and it happened up here. It's repeating itself, because then what I have to do then, because since we can't end on a remainder, we have to add another 0, and then drop that down into 0. So what's happening here is something called a repeating decimal. It's where we're going to keep repeating 3, 3, 3, 3 all the way that way, and we're going to have to keep going all the way to the right this way infinitely until 3, we can never end up with a 0. This is a problem because you can't answer the problem that way. So instead, what we'd have to do when you answer this repeating decimal is, let's put our decimal up, like so, with the 0, and to then answer it, you put a dash right up here to explain to me and everyone else that it is a repeating decimal. So your decimal is 0.3. So to recap, 1/3 is equal to 0.3 repeating. There is your answer.